Welcome to Module 3 on Watercraft Inspection. As inspectors with daily face-to-face contact with boaters, you are the face of Colorado Parks and Wildlife as well as the agency or employer that you represent. As such, you are expected to maintain a high level of professionalism at all times. The inspector's role is to perform inspections and decontaminations to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species on recreational watercraft and to educate the public. Regardless of who you work for, you are an authorized agent of Colorado Parks and Wildlife when certified to perform inspections. As such, you are expected to always act professionally and follow state procedures. All boats should be clean, drained, and dry in between launches. This means no water, no mud, no animals, and no plants. If boats are not moving any of these, we have significantly reduced, if not eliminated, the risk of carrying invasive species on recreational watercraft. Remember to educate every boater to clean, drain, and dry. Do not assume they know. A trolling motor can be electric or gasoline and are used for moving quietly and slowly through the water. Outboard motors are attached to the transom of the boat and are housed entirely outside of the boat. Inboard-outboard, or I/O engines, have the lower unit outside of the boat while the engine is housed inside the boat. Inboard engines have the entire engine located inside the boat with only a prop and prop shaft external to the boat. And jet engines intake water under the boat, which is then forced through an impeller and out of the jet that steers and powers the watercraft. The state of Colorado has defined 3 categories of boats. Regulation-exempt boats do not need to be inspected unless they launch from a trailer or have a gasoline or diesel motor. Simple boats need to be inspected, as do complex boats. The 8 boats exempt in regulation from inspection in Colorado are kayaks, canoes, rafts, belly boats, windsurfer boards and paddle boards, sailboards, float tubes, and inner tubes. Remember, not all hand-launched boats are exempt. Only the 8 listed in regulation. Exempt boats lose their exemption if they launch on a trailer or if a gasoline or diesel motor is added. Simple boats, as defined by the state, are boats with an open hull, no containers or compartments, and a single outboard motor. Complex boats have a closed hull, or 1 or more interior compartments, or more than 1 motor or engine. Remember, in general, the more complex the boat, the higher a risk it is. As we mentioned in the introductory module, in 2015 we will begin using a new WID site classification system. These classifications are negative prevention water, waters that have never had a verified detection of any ANS. Other ANS positive water, waters that have a verified presence of an ANS listed in the Chapter 8 regulations other than zebra or quagga mussels. Most ANS positive waters are also prevention waters for mussels and some other ANS. ZQM containment water, waters that have had a verified zebra or quagga mussel detection. Pueblo is the only ZQM containment water. And last, off-water WIDs. These are authorized locations that are not at a lake or reservoir. Now, let's go over seals. Colorado uses a seal and receipt system so that a boater can show proof of prior inspection. The state uses a green seal that locks the boat to the trailer. This assures the inspector that the boat is not launched since the seal was last applied. This green seal, accompanied by a receipt, helps communicate across jurisdictions by documenting what level of inspection or decontamination was previously performed. It also allows authorized locations that are not located at a lake or reservoir to show proof of inspection. So where are seals applied? Be sure to attach the seal between the eye bolt and a hard welded part of the trailer so it cannot be removed and put back without breaking. While the goal is 100% of watercraft getting seals with receipts on exit, there are minimum standards set that WIDs will be expected to achieve. Prevention or negative waters with pre-inspection must perform exit inspections and provide seals and receipts to at least 80% of the boaters. Prevention or negative waters without pre-inspection must perform exit inspections and provide seals and receipts to at least 90% of the boaters. Other ANS positive waters must perform exit inspections and provide seals and receipts to at least 90% of the boaters. And ZQM containment waters must strive to inspect 100% of outgoing watercraft, but realistically should achieve at least 95% seal application rates. Boats will be sealed with a matching receipt if one of the following occurs. It leaves a ZQM containment reservoir and passes a high-risk inspection or decontamination. It leaves an other ANS positive water and passes an exit inspection. It leaves a prevention reservoir and passes an exit inspection or decontamination. Or it comes into an office or business watercraft inspection and decontamination site and passes either an inspection or decontamination. 2015 will also see some changes in the receipts being provided to watercraft operators when applying a seal. Negative prevention waters will continue to use white receipts with green seals as they always have. Other ANS positive waters will use a slightly modified blue receipt with green seals. And Lake Pueblo, the only ZQM containment water, will pilot a new receipt that attaches directly to the seal wire. Green seals must be accompanied by a matching receipt. Green seals from prevention reservoirs will be accompanied by a white receipt. All of the information in boxes should be filled out so that a boater cannot tamper with the receipt. There is a notes section to fill in any important information for the next inspector. For example, if the boat had a dead battery and the motor couldn't be lowered. Boats that were sealed leaving an other ANS positive water will be accompanied by a blue receipt. The receipt will indicate which type of ANS that water is positive for to help you make decisions regarding decontamination. Some state parks have a pre-inspection policy in place. Blue containment receipts are only valid for pre-inspection if they are returning to the same water where that receipt was issued. In addition to the blue and white receipts you are accustomed to, Lake Pueblo State Park will be piloting a new receipt in 2015. This receipt will attach directly to the seal wire. We do not have an example of this receipt to show at this time. Your supervisor will notify you and provide you an example of this receipt. This is the new seal removal flowchart for 2015. There are significant differences due to the addition of a third type of WID and receipt types. Let's go through this scenario by scenario. Let's start with the scenario that hasn't changed. Based on the information provided on the receipt, the scenario should be a very fast clip and go. If a boat has a green seal and a receipt, read the receipt to see if they are returning to the same location, or if they've been out of water for more than 30 days, or if the boat was decontaminated. If any one of those is true, ask about live bait and follow bait rules, thank the boater, and allow them to launch. Now, let's assume the boater has lost their receipt. The inspector must examine the seal and verify it hasn't been tampered with. See what WID location is listed on the seal. If it is from the same location or a true negative prevention water, educate the boater to keep the receipt next time. Ask about live bait and follow bait rules. Thank the boater and allow them to launch. If they lost the receipt and the seal is from an other ANS positive water, and you work it in other ANS positive water with the same ANS, you can allow the boater to launch after educating them not to lose their receipt and following bait rules. If they don't have a receipt and the seal is not from a water with the same ANS as your water has, you must inspect the boat for standing water and follow all standing water rules. This will most likely result in a standing water decontamination. If the boat is truly dry and does not have ballast and IO or an inboard, you may allow launch without decontamination after asking about bait and thanking the boater. Okay, let's discuss the removal process for a boat with a seal and a valid receipt. If the receipt is white from a negative location, you can quickly allow launch after asking about live bait and thanking the boater. A seal with the right receipt should be a quick clip and go. If the receipt is from Pueblo, the only ZQM containment site, and has not been out of the water for more than 30 days or been decontaminated, you must check for standing water and follow standing water rules. This will most likely result in a standing water decontamination. If the boat is truly dry and does not have ballast, an IO, or an inboard, you may allow launch without decontamination after asking about bait and thanking the boater. This scenario assumes the inspector does not work at Pueblo. If they have a seal with a blue receipt from another ANS positive water, and your water body is positive for the same ANS, you can verify drained and allow launch after asking about bait and thanking the boater. If they have a seal with a blue receipt from another ANS positive water, and your water body is negative or not positive for the same ANS listed on the receipt, you must check for standing water and follow standing water rules. This will most likely result in a standing water decontamination. Again, if the boat is truly dry and does not have ballast, an IO, or an inboard, you may allow launch without decontamination after asking about bait and thanking the boater. Now, let's take a minute to review the entire seal removal flowchart with all scenarios illustrated. Inspectors need to be extremely familiar with these new procedures. It is very important that inspectors read seal receipts and seal codes to determine which path to follow. Inspectors will be required to know all waters positive for other ANS and should have a quick reference list available. When removing a seal, check the receipt, and if one of the following is true, it is returning to the same lake or reservoir, the boat has been out of water for 30 or more days, or the boat has been decontaminated, ask about live aquatic bait and allow the boater to launch. If the boat has a seal from a different prevention reservoir, or from New Mexico or Wyoming, ask the boater to pull the bilge plug to verify that the boat is drained. If any water drains out, ask the boater to lower the motor. If no water drains out of the motor, ask the boater if they have live aquatic bait, and allow them to launch. If, however, the motor has water, then continue to do an entrance inspection and look for water in compartments. When removing a seal from an other ANS positive or ZQM containment water, check the receipt. Was the boat decontaminated or was it out of water for more than 30 days? If the answer is yes, ask about live aquatic bait and allow the boat to launch. If it was not, then check for standing water. Have the boater pull the bilge plug to verify there is no standing water. If water drains out, have the boater lower the motor and check compartments for water. Inboards, inboard-outboards, and ballast boats require a mandatory decontamination if they came from other ANS positive or ZQM containment waters less than 30 days prior. If no water drained out, then ask the boater about aquatic bait and allow the boat to launch. So, what if the boater loses their receipt? If a boater has lost a white receipt from prevention waters or are returning to the same location with a white or blue receipt and have unverifiable water on their vessel, they will not need to be decontaminated per Standing Water Rule 3A. If the boater is coming from a different other ANS or ZQM containment water and do not have a receipt, they are still subject to Standing Water Rule 3A regarding unverifiable water. When explaining green seals to the public, there are a few things to keep in mind. Green does not mean boaters can launch without being inspected. A green seal and receipt together is proof that the boat was inspected and has not launched since then. Boaters still need to stop at the inspection station to have the seal and receipt verified. In some cases, the inspector may need to inspect the boat again if they find water or the boat is not clean. However, keeping a clean and dry boat will help boaters get on the water faster. You may see other colored seals from other states and from a few municipalities in the state. In 2015, Colorado will continue to accept seals with proper receipts from Wyoming and New Mexico. Inspectors should treat them the same as a Colorado green. However, we do not currently accept any other seals other than those. If a boat arrives with a different colored seal, it must go through an inspection as though it had no seal. See the chart in your textbook that describes other seals in use. Now let's move on to inspection procedure. There are 4 types of inspection you might perform: entrance, high risk, exit at containment, and exit at prevention. Let's review a standard entrance inspection. Entrance inspection procedures are the same at both prevention and containment reservoirs. Remember, on all inspections, you must look as well as feel the boat for ANS. Entrance inspections are performed prior to a boat launching on the water and is the same procedure whether you are working at a containment or a prevention reservoir. Each inspection varies in time depending on the type and complexity of the boat. You will use the paper WID log or data collector for every inspection. Entrance inspections require you to assess the risk of that watercraft and requires you to look and feel for aquatic nuisance species. Let's take a minute to watch an example of a textbook entrance inspection.
Watercraft inspections are a proven method to stop the spread of zebra and quagga mussels and other invaders. Because overland travel on boats and trailers is the primary vector for spreading aquatic invasive species, boat inspections and decontaminations are critical to protect waters from an irreversible infestation that could threaten recreational opportunities and cause expensive and irreparable damage to ecosystems, water-related infrastructure, and local economies. This video will show you how to perform a watercraft entrance inspection. By following these steps, infested boats can be intercepted and decontaminated prior to launching. This inspection protocol also serves as a key public education and awareness component. Because watercraft inspectors cannot be placed at every boat ramp in the state, teaching boaters how to inspect their own vessels is critical to protect our waters and to ensure the long-term success of this program. When a boat arrives at the inspection station, greet the boater by introducing yourself. Ask the driver to set their parking brake, put the vehicle in park, and turn off the ignition. The driver should step out of the vehicle and assist with the inspection. Provide a brief explanation of the inspection process and the reason for performing the inspection. Inform the boater that you are looking for zebra or quagga mussels or other invasive plants or animals. Be sure to give them a brochure with additional information. Remember to tell the boater that you are also making sure that their watercraft is clean, drained, and dry before launching. Record information about the watercraft in either the mobile application or the paper activity log. Be sure to enter the watercraft's registration number and trailer license plate. If the boat is new and does not have a registration number, record the whole number or HIN. Note if the boat is coming in or going out and the type of craft. If the boat has a seal, check to make sure the receipt matches and follow the procedures for applying or removing seals. If the boat does not have a valid seal and receipt, you must begin the inspection by interviewing the boater to determine if the vessel poses a high risk of introducing invasive species. There are two questions that you must ask to determine risk. First, ask if the watercraft has been launched out of state in the last 30 days.
Sir, is this boat launched out of state in the last 30 days? No, it is not.
Next, ask where the boat has launched in the last 30 days.
Where has this boat launched in the last 30 days?
Listen carefully and note if any of the waters mentioned are suspect or are listed as positive for mussels or other invasive species. Do not combine these questions or you will miss a critical risk factor, since many states have lakes and reservoirs with the same name. Because species like zebra and quagga mussels can survive out of water for up to 30 days, establishing when and where a vessel has launched is critical to determine risk. Record if the watercraft is complex and if it is dirty, crusty, or slimy. These factors also increase risk. Next, it's important to physically inspect the watercraft for standing water. Be sure to ask the boater if they are carrying live aquatic bait. If so, follow the live bait protocols. Also check to see if the watercraft has ballast tanks. Because ballast tanks cannot be drained, seen, or physically inspected, you must follow the standing water protocols. Next, perform the visual and physical inspection of the boat. The acronym HEAD can help you remember the systematic process for inspecting watercraft. H is for hull and trailer. E is for engine. A is for anchor. And D is for drain. Begin by inspecting the hull and trailer on the port side of the bow and move toward the stern. Look and feel for any sandpaper-like bumps or any other signs of invasives. If at any point zebra or quagga mussels or other invasive species are suspected, a high-risk inspection and a full decontamination are required. Repeat this process on the starboard side of the hull and trailer from stern to bow. Use a flashlight for dark spaces and a mirror for areas that are difficult to see. Once the hull and trailer have been inspected, physically and visually inspect the bilge plug and bilge area using a flashlight. If applicable, have the boater activate the bilge pump. Complete the exterior inspection by checking the transom, including any instruments that are attached. Ask the boater to lower the engine and verify that it has been drained. Inspect the engine using a flashlight to see dark hidden places where mussels like to attach. Pay particular attention to the intakes, motor mount, and gimbal. Next, ask for permission to board the watercraft. Have the boater enter first and safely follow them inside. Ask the boater to take out the anchor and anchor rope or chain. Be sure to examine these carefully since they come in contact with the bottom of the lake where invasive mussels are typically found. Next, inspect interior compartments to verify that they are dry. Begin at the bow and work toward the stern. Ask the boater to open compartments that hold water, including live wells or bait wells, and any compartments that hold equipment. Be sure to examine and feel life jackets, buoys, paddles, ropes, nets, and drift socks, and ensure that all items are clean and dry. If standing water is found in any compartment and the boater claims to have launched only in negative waters, remove standing water from the watercraft using a pump, sponge, or towel. If the watercraft cannot be drained or was previously launched in positive waters, follow standing water protocols and perform a decontamination. Once the inspection is finished, remind the boater to reinsert the bilge plug and raise the engine. Encourage the boater to get an exit inspection and explain how having a seal and receipt will allow them to launch more quickly when they return. Thank the boater for their cooperation and allow them to launch. Finalize the inspection by submitting the record in the mobile application or on the paper activity log.
Welcome back. Because water in ballast tanks is unverifiable, they pose a very high risk for transporting ANS. Fortunately, a ballast tank filter, the Mussel Master, has been developed and shown to be 99.9% effective in filtering veligers from the water prior to be taken into the ballast tanks. Several marine manufacturers have begun installing these filters, and they are also available for retrofitting. When inspecting a boat with ballast tanks, you should check to see if the watercraft has the Mussel Master installed. If the ballast tanks have the Muscle Master filter, you check the sticker to verify it was installed within 6 months, and that the tamper-resistant red tags are intact. And if yes, go on with inspection. If no, send to decontamination and follow the standing water rules. Always be on the lookout for high-risk factors. If you determine that the boat has a high risk for carrying ANS, you must do a high-risk inspection. This means if there are 2 or more high-risk factors, out of state in 30 days, positive waters in 30 days, dirty, crusty, slimy, complex boat, and or standing water present, then you must conduct a high-risk inspection. A high-risk inspection is a much more thorough inspection. Slow down. Look more than once. Look very carefully for ANS. Remember that mussels favor rough areas, angles, light-colored surfaces, dark areas or shadows, below the waterline, and compartments that hold water. High-risk inspections are performed when watercraft are identified as having a high biological risk of carrying ANS during an entrance or exit inspection. During entrance inspections, if the boat receives 2 or more check marks under the Determining Risk Factors section, the boat needs a high-risk inspection. Boats exiting ZQM containment waters must be inspected and are automatically a high-risk inspection. Remember, the high-risk factors are boats that have launched out of state within 30 days, boats that have launched in positive or suspect waters within 30 days, dirty, crusty, or slimy boats, complex boats, and standing water in the vessel. High-risk inspections use the same method to inspect, using the HEAD acronym. However, it is a longer and more thorough inspection because the boat is high risk. You are looking very closely to find signs of ANS. Remember, out-of-state boats, boats coming from positive waters, and boats carrying standing water pose the greatest risk. During a high-risk inspection, feel the entire hull, trailer, and transom below the waterline, focusing on angles and fasteners, and you may need to do more than one pass. When looking at the engine and gimbal area, you must use a flashlight and feel with your hands as mussels like to attach in these areas and can be difficult to see. When inspecting the interior of the boat, be sure to look in all interior compartments that could come in contact with water, including equipment. Make sure that all water is drained out of the boat. If it cannot be fully drained, perform a standing water decontamination. We will cover decontaminations in the next module. Exit inspections at prevention reservoirs are required to get a green seal and receipt. Inspect as many boats as possible on exit. We want all boats to have green seals and receipts in between every launch. Exit inspections are performed when the boat is leaving the reservoir. It continues to use the HEAD acronym. This is the minimum required to receive a green seal and receipt when leaving a prevention reservoir and provides an opportunity to educate boaters, ensure vessel hull and anchor are clean, ensure the vessel is drained, and encourage additional cleaning and drying. Remind the boater to leave the bilge plug out during transport to ensure more drainage from the bilge and to dry equipment at home. If at any point ANS is found, do a high-risk inspection and decontaminate. Also, be sure to verify the accuracy of your data entry and thank the boater for their time and cooperation. Now, let's go over protocols for exit inspections at ZQM containment reservoirs. Exit inspections at ZQM containment reservoirs are mandatory by regulation. These are automatically high-risk inspections. All water must be fully drained out and or decontaminated if the boat is headed to a different or unknown location. If the boater is returning to the same containment reservoir, then the boat must be drained to the best of the inspector's ability. The goal for watercraft exiting ZQM containment reservoirs is to be drained, and if it cannot be fully drained, then perform a standing water decontamination. No water in, no water out. Let's go through a couple of scenarios of a boat exiting a ZQM containment reservoir. The inspector will ask the boater if they are returning to the same reservoir or going elsewhere. If the boater plans on coming back, then the inspector will perform a high-risk inspection and drain the boat to the best of their ability. The inspector will then issue a green seal and blue receipt, which will be marked yes that the boater is returning. If, however, the boater decides that they are going somewhere else, or are unsure of their next boating destination, the inspector will perform a high-risk inspection and perform a standing water decontamination in all areas where the boat cannot be fully drained. They will then issue a green seal and receipt and mark No under returning boater. In some cases, a standing water decontamination will be mandatory. If the boat has ballast tanks, an inboard-outboard or inboard engine, these must be given a standing water decontamination if the boat is headed to a different location. Keep in mind that if a boat arrives at a prevention location, from containment or unknown location with ballast tanks, inboard-outboard, or inboard engine, they must perform a standing water decontamination of these areas. Just a few more notes on the new Other A&S containment protocol. To reiterate, other A&S positive water shall provide clean, drain, dry exit inspections, as well as seals and receipts to at least 90% of outgoing watercraft. Other A&S containment differs from ZQM containment in that these waters will not be performing high-risk inspections. Instead, they are performing standard exit inspections. It also differs in that decontamination will not be required at the exiting location unless A&S is found or suspected. Boats carrying standing water pose a huge biological risk of transporting A&S. Mussel larvae, juveniles, pathogens, and plant seeds or fragments can be carried in this water. This is why all boats should be drained out in between launches or decontaminated. The only exception to this rule is if a boat with ballast tanks, IO, or inboard engine has been drained to the best of your ability and issued a green seal and receipt, and is launching at another prevention water. In this course, we talk about two different types of water. Verifiable water is water that you can visually see and inspect for, such as live wells. Unverifiable water is water that you cannot see, feel, or visually inspect for. This is most common with ballast tanks, IO, and inboard engines. Here are the standing water protocols. If the watercraft has been in suspect, positive, or infested waters within the last 30 days and was not decontaminated upon exit and has any standing water, it is mandatory to send the watercraft to decontamination. Rule number 2. Boats with verifiable water. Watercraft that are from unknown sources or from prevention waters must be clean, drained, and dry. Sponge, pump, or towel out standing water or decontaminate prior to allowing launch. And rule number 3. Boats with unverifiable water. Boats with no green seal and receipt will get a standing water decontamination. Boats with a green seal and receipt that are returning to the same location do not need decontamination. Boats with a green seal and receipt moving between Colorado prevention locations must be fully pumped out and no longer require decontamination. Boats with a green seal and receipt moving between Colorado prevention locations must be fully pumped out and no longer require decontamination. Please, educate all ballast boaters to get green seals and receipts when exiting reservoirs. As mentioned previously, in addition to the new rules regarding green seals and receipts, we are also updating the protocols relating to the Muscle Master ballast filter. These changes are specifically in regards to ballast boats coming into your water without a valid seal and receipt. If you happen to have a ballast boat show up at your ramp without their seal and receipt, first you should ask them if they have the Muscle Master filter installed. If they do, you should then proceed to verify the efficacy of that filter. In other words, check the sticker on the filter to verify that it was installed less than 6 months ago. If it was in fact installed within the last 6 months, check the 2 red tamper-proof seals to verify they are intact and have not been tampered with. If the watercraft meets all of these criteria, they will not be required to receive the standing water decontamination as outlined in Standing Water Rule 3A. At this point, you should complete your HEAD inspection, close out the inspection, and allow the watercraft to launch. Before and after every launch, you must ask the boater if they have live aquatic bait on board. This is because bait water can harbor mussel veligers or diseases like whirling disease or viral hemorrhagic septicemia, 2 deadly fish diseases. Also, the bait itself could be an invasive species, such as a rusty crayfish. Live aquatic bait rules are different at different sites. It's important to know the rules for your site. Most cities do not allow live aquatic bait. Generally, bait bought through a bait dealer with a receipt less than 7 days old is allowed if the species in question is allowed at the site. The feral harvest and transportation of live fish is prohibited almost everywhere. There are some exceptions. Crayfish are allowed to be harvested and moved live east of the Continental Divide, except from Sanchez Reservoir. They are not allowed to be transported live west of the Continental Divide. Gilled salamanders are allowed to be harvested and moved live everywhere live aquatic bait is allowed. Out-of-state bait is never allowed. Know the rules for your site. Now, let's quickly discuss reporting. If you find or think you have found a mussel boat, you must call your immediate supervisor to notify them. They will then notify the State Invasive Species Coordinator. Specimens should be collected and sent to the Aquatic Animal Health Lab in Brush within 24 hours of collecting the specimen. We will go into more detail when we cover decontamination. If you happen to intercept a vessel with ZQM or other ANS, do not allow the boater to leave with mussels or other ANS attached to their vessel. Call law enforcement if you need help. This concludes the third module on inspection. Please take this module's exam and proceed to Module 4 on decontamination.